Hey everybody, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, that website address is theclinicaltrialsguru.com. I've been really busy lately with my clinics and with my real estate business. So it's taking a while for me to get back to these questions that you guys are sending regarding clinical trials. And I apologize. So today I'll try to do a couple, just batch them in. But yeah, it's been busy, but that's good. So the first one is regarding this person wants a little bit more details about podcasting. So for those of you who don't know, a couple videos ago, I highly recommended for clinical research professionals and for any industry for that matter. I mean, I do it for real estate primarily, but having a local podcast, I think that's a really good way to recruit study participants for your clinic, to get exposure for your clinic, and it's free, practically free exposure. So here is a viewer question. It says, "Hi Dan, I just listened to your video about a local podcast. How exactly does it work? Do I have to buy a domain on GoDaddy? I thought that was just for websites. I'm not technologically savvy. Thanks." So here's the answer. Yes and no. You can have a website. You can buy a domain from GoDaddy. I would suggest your city name radio.com. So if you're in Aurora, Colorado, I would do auroraradio.com. If you're in Anaheim, anaheimradio.com, although that's already taken by me. You get the idea. Now, you don't need a website to have a podcast. Okay, you can do a podcast without buying a domain, without getting web hosting, which I'm going to talk about in this video. But I recommend you do, because I recommend that you capture email. So if you were to do just a podcast without having a website, the podcast would be hosted on iTunes and Stitcher. That's what I recommend. iTunes, everyone knows what that is. Just Google how to submit a podcast to iTunes. Stitcher is the same thing. It's a very popular app. It's growing in popularity. People are downloading these things on their phones. They're listening to podcasts in the car. Hopefully they'll listen to yours. You can have that on Stitcher as well. And the way you would host your podcast on iTunes and on Stitcher, you can do that in addition to having a website, which is what I do. So for AnaheimRadio.net, which is what I own, I have my show on Stitcher and on iTunes, and I own AnaheimRadio.net. I bought it from GoDaddy for $9.99. I think it was $7.99 because it was a .net, and I paid $0 for hosting through GoDaddy. So hosting is totally different. If you want to put WordPress on it, you can. That's probably like $90 a year for hosting. You don't need to do that. You can just buy the domain from GoDaddy, $7.99, $9.99, whatever it may be. You'll renew it every year, so you have to pay that fee every year. But whatever, I mean, $9.99 for a year is nothing, okay? And you can actually host it for free on Tumblr.com. TUMBLR.com. That's actually what I do for AnaheimRadio.net. I bought AnaheimRadio.net there. I host it on GoDaddy. I don't host it on GoDaddy. I host the Clinical Trials Guru on GoDaddy because I wanted WordPress. But I host AnaheimRadio.net on Tumblr because my idea is to buy a lot of these local radio.coms and host them for free. I don't want to pay for all the hosting for every website. It's going to get complicated. So I use Tumblr for that. Tumblr's free. If you want to see how AnaheimRadio.net looks like, go to Tumblr. There's debates whether SEO, which is search engine optimization, is better on Tumblr or WordPress. I'm not necessarily an expert. I think it's slightly better on WordPress, but that's the trade-off you get. Now, I also host my podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. And the way I do that is I use a vendor called Podcast Garden. Podcast Garden. They are free for the first 30 days, and after that, I think it's $9 a year for unlimited hosting. And the reason why you want to put your audio files on Podcast Garden is because that creates an RSS link. And an RSS link, don't ask me what it means, but you need it to submit it to iTunes and to Stitcher. So the good thing is when you record a podcast, you upload it to Podcast Garden. Podcast Garden, once you submit your podcast to iTunes and to Stitcher, they're going to ask you for that RSS link. That's the only time you'll ever have to do it, when you set it up. After that, each time you upload a podcast to Podcast Garden, they are going to submit it to iTunes and Stitcher automatically for you. And what I do is I take that link and I also put it on my Tumblr account, because you can put the links on Tumblr. So I have my podcast on my website, anaheimradio.net. I also have my podcast on Stitcher and on iTunes, and I'm paying like $20 a year for this. Okay, so it's practically free, and it's unlimited hosting on Tumblr, and it's unlimited Podcast Garden hosting for one podcast. That's what I would do. I recommend you have the domain. So again, all this is possible. The iTunes and the Stitcher is possible without even going to GoDaddy.com, without even buying a domain. You can just have a podcast and have it be sent out through Podcast Garden to iTunes and Stitcher. But the reason why I want you to have a domain name is because I want you to put, if you go to anaheimradio.net and look at it, you'll see that I have a subscribe by email button. I have a form there. I want to capture people's emails because I want people, obviously if someone subscribes to my website, they're interested in my local city or my content. So those are my customers. Those are people I can market to. I want to capture their email addresses. That's what I recommend you do. Hopefully this works. I'm going to do a detailed DVD on this topic in my future upcoming DVD, how to recruit more study participants for your clinical trial. I'll be probably filming that in October, and hopefully it'll be ready in November, or at least towards the end of the year. I've been so busy, but I'll have a detailed chapter on just this. But this is a freebie for you guys, since you are local viewers and subscribers, and make sure you like this on YouTube and drop comments. Let me know if it's not clear enough or how else I may help. Okay, this is Dan from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. I wanted to give a shout out to my Clinical Trial Guru producers: Sarah Elizabeth Siegler, Resolve Research Solutions, Accurate Clinical Trials, Erdhart Clinical Trials, PTNR, Patrick Stone, Darshan Kulkarni, Biopharm Systems, Zymewire, Mozio, South Coast Clinical Trials, Breakthrough Clinical Trials, and St. Paul Medical Research Center in Miami, Florida. Thank you all very much, and stay tuned for more. Dan from theclinicaltrialsguru.com.